Alright, metal body repair, Aipd, subcourse OD1653, lesson 2, task 2, lesson 2, operating required glass radiator fuel tank, describe operators required for the proper radiator repair. Condition with self-study environment, give subcourse text without assistance reference. No supplementary references are needed for this task. Our introduction: radiator motor vehicle, the essential element of the cooling system. The motor must function correctly with the engine to escape the shear of the damage of the overheating. Engine is cooled circulating water which passes through the cylinder block, draws out the heat, and then releases the air while flowing with the radiator. If the circulation is hindered out of the water leak of the radiator, immediate repairs made to protect the engine. Most radiator failures are caused by vibration, freezing, disintegration, strain, collision in tubular cores, worn or frozen tubes, broken solder between the tubes, and header plates. Correct header plates are most frequent cause of the trouble. The honeycomb cores usually leak in the same either side or offset of the header strip of the tank. Leaks in few, but there may appear with unsoldered joints, cracked, and worn spots or fittings. Alright, radiator construction. An automobile truck with tractor radiators consist of two water tanks, upper and lower, joined with the core of the does the actual cooling. Water from the cylinder block usually enters the upper tank through the inlet, flows through the core of the leaves of the lower tank. The overflow pipe of the upper tank carries away the excess steam and water in the radiator assembly with the cast metal tanks that are bolted to the side member of the gasket between the tanks. Our core with a watertight connection. The type of the rigid radiator construction usually with the heavy-duty trucks and tractors. Figure 34 illustrates the steel stamped metal radiator with the form of the soldering drum with the stamped metal tanks for the radiator core. The side members are straps for the steel solder upper and lower tanks. Figure 34 shows the stamped steel radiator filler, upper tank overflow, soldered point, upper header, side members, bonding bracket, radiator core, solder joint, lower header plate, lower tank drain. These lighter constructions generally are played with the cast metal type of the passenger car light-duty tanks, which is usually concealed by a hood and radiator grill. Alright, 1. Water tanks. Almost all radiator tanks are cast stabs in one piece with the reduce the number of potential leaks. With the baffle plate with the upper tank with below the neck with eliminates excessive splashing distributed with the water uniformly over the tank. Radiator fittings. Radiator fittings are filler neck with the inlet connection, the upper tank with the outer connection, the drain valve with the lower tank. They are made with the malleable iron press steel metal. When they are manufactured, separate parts are brazed, soldered, and bolted riveted to the tank. Tubular core. This type is made with a vertical tube with a drawn or seam weld with the side with a thin sheet with the metal with the top with the bottom of the cull with the header plate. With the header plates are mounted pads with the upper and lower tank with the hydraulic passage of the water from tanks to core, except through the tube. The tubes are generally spaced with a 3/4 inch apart with the two with the four straight staggered rows approximately 2.5 inches apart. Figure 35 of the following page, staggered row with the twice as many tube with the rows except over the air entering in the radiator, which increase the cooling capacity. Rough and round tubes are easily broken with expansion from freezing water, whereas oval tubes are distorted to some extent before breaking. Radiating surface of the tubes occasionally increase with the spiral fins on each tube. The more commonly, the thin sheets of metal, the horizontal fins, extend all the way across the radiator 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch apart in contact with each of the tube. Front edge of each horizontal fins are usually crimped on, bent back into the double thickness in which with the strength of the radiator core. Shrink within the radiator core. And most radiator core with the fins of the soldered tube with the speed of the heat transfer of the tubular core radiator is generally large for the honeycomb core radiator. There's the same cooling capacity. Figure 35 shows the radiator construction, coolant flow with the round tube construction, coolant tube flow, flat tube, corrugated fin construction, flat tube construction, and coolant flow tank. Or your honeycomb core. One of the form of the honeycomb core is a lot like water passage extending vertically through the core. More sections of the honey like air cools. Like each section of the offset of the same metal ribbon around outside bent wet and fins within. Adjacent section with the side if the offset with the wear is about 1/4 inch wide with the extent of 1/4 inch in from each face of the core of the ribbon of the top section is called with a header strip. Ribbons are overlapping the form of the seam of the construct with a single top of the section. Note with the seam of the standing with the center of the header strip downward to the span. With the sidewalls, 3 entire cell will provide the broad contact air with the seal of the ribbon to so many different shapes of the area cell. Maybe use the heat honeycomb construction that is impractical to discuss them all. After learning, recognize few represent the type of the repair should be able to analyze the construction of any of their core. In U-shaped air cell core, air cells are formed with the U-shaped fins when zigzags of the tip of the core with the bottom deflecting the air, where it drops almost directly with the upper tank to the lower tank. In this core, The diamond-shaped cell construction resemble the U-shaped cell with the construction set with the ribbons zigzag with the same pattern as the fin, but the creating of the diamond shape with the air passage with the water passage between the ribbons is irregular, therefore efficient. Schooling they are more easily clogged. Each fin will have many bumps and rivets called deflectors. Watch improve the cooling area exposed to the air with such honeycomb core with the square cell of the water has further traveled in the diamond cell core. So for the continuous water passage for the alternately vertical horizontal rather than diagonal honeycomb type of the core with several disadvantages. Although it exposes a large strip of the air, it rather frail with irregular passages clog easily. Much of the external surface of the honeycomb radiator dispel the heat indirectly with the hence loss of effectiveness. The also difficult manufactured metal ribbon of thinness sheave of the honeycomb radiators without producing holes successfully in the piece of the steel burrs that may rust out, cause leaks, and honeycombs are usually mainly on passenger cars and light-duty trucks. Alright, radiator cleaning. Radiator cleaning, three purposes to restore the perfect radiation, facilitate soldering and remove the obstruction water circulation. Various chemical salt, the dirts found in the water, different localities, together with the grease and oil, find their way into the cooling system. Collect inside the water, pass with the radiator, insulate with the water from the metal to stop circulation, overheat the engine, rust disintegrates the rubber hose of the accumulated deposit of the antifreeze or stop leak. Preparation will have to be the same effect. Water passage may be cleaned by pressure flushing, boiling, rod cleaning, dust lint, and plugs often adhere to the thin surface in sufficient quantity to restrict the airflow through the radiator, decrease efficiency, spray cleaning if necessary. Flow testing. For radiators cleaning should be flow tested to determine how badly clogged it is. Flow tester is used for this purpose. The tester indicates the exact amount of water will flow with the gravity through the radiator per minute. The reading indicated when the test meter compared with the flow rate of the new radiator with the specification furnished with the manufacturer. The difference between the actual rate and the specified rate indicates the amount of radiator is clogged. How you flow test the radiator set with the stand provided with the hose connected with the radiator inlet, but after the hose is connected with the chilling, the pump is turned on and the water flow is adjusted until the constant level of maintained in the tank. Alright, caution, be carefully adjusting the flow rate. If you with the accidentally push the lever too far, the water will shoot over the top of the radiator onto the repair capacity for the tester with its 90 gallons of the water per minute as given to more than one person unwanted. Pressure flushing. Pressure flushing forces water with the air pressure approximately 5 psi through the water passage over the core. It may be accomplished with two ways: direct flushing, which the water is forced through the top to the bottom, or air flows in the normal surface. Reverse flushing. Same equipment required with both methods: water pressure, air pressure, and flushing gun. To clean the radiator by direct pressure flushing, screw the radiator cap on the filler neck with adjusting the lead away to the hose to the outlet connection on the lower tank, while flushing the gun is inlet connection with the upper tank. Fill the radiator with the water. With the water alone, often sufficient to break lead with the grease and sludge and rust. Scale within the radiator that must be necessary to adjust some good radiator cleaner. When the deposits are loosened, turn the water off and emit with compressed air to the radiator. The short blast, adding water between the blasts until the water drains out clear at normal rate, but the air must be applied gradually since the radiator will stand only on the limited amount of pressure. Reverse flushing is similar except for the lead away with the hose of the track with the inlet connection and flushing gun to the outlet, but the method of the pressure flushing effective when the radiator is not too badly clogged. Alright, 3. Boil cut out radiators. Sediment with firmly compact with the radiator with the pressure and flushing will not remove it. It must be boiled out with a suitable cleaning chemical solution. Vat is made with the radiator lowered beneath the strip of the level of the contractile rack. After the radiator has boiled with a sufficient amount of time, it is removed from the vat and placed in the spray booth. At the spray booth at the outside of the radiator, wash with the air pressure water to force out dirt, bugs, lint, and other material logged in the fins. They are so free circulation of air around all parts of each of the tube. Finish restored. Also, the interior of the radiator is back flush and with the air pressure and water. Cleaning solution. To make it a good cleaning solution, dissolve 1 pound of the ordinary baking soda in 1 gallon of water. The commercial prepared chemical cleaner for radiators is used to follow the direction of the container. Rod cleaning. If the flushing or boiling are inadequate, the scrape of the inside of the water passage with the bristle brush. Cleaning of the rod with tubular radiators. This may merely a round wire for its end round enough to avoid puncturing of the tube. The honeycomb and the cellular radiators use flat strip of metals with the edge round, but not quite as wide with the water passage, pushing them back and forth through the water passage. Alright, test the radiator for leaks. Before testing the radiator, locate the leakage and inspect it, and the carefully visible leaks out of them properly. With the test should be sensitive enough to reveal less of obvious defects. The two standard methods of the testing will only introduce the air under light pressure for the radiator, immersing the water, locating the leaks appearing in the bubble, the other filling with the radiator with water, locating the leaks, moisturizing, seeping through the either testing satisfactory. Although air test method is preferred, mark the leaks as soon as they have facilitated locking them during repairs. Alright, visual inspection. Deposit over the line of magnesium left on the outside with a terrific evaporating water indicate the leaks on the radiator. Before removing the bad radiator for the vehicle, inspect the deposit for the determined amount of the repair needed. Experiment with the will teach you how to determine the true condition of the radiator for observation. Or at least many of the leaks that can be seen. Do not make any air water tests until the leaks are indicated the visual inspection had been repaired. For the effectiveness of the leaks, discovering hidden leaks is lost to reveal obvious leaks. Air test. The air test is so called because the leaks indicate that escaping the air with the most efficient means of locating hidden leaks with connecting air pressure tube directly or by nipple through the bottom of the overflow pipe with a screw with a cap type with a filler neck with a plug in the inlet with the outlet with the expanding with the cup-shaped rubber stoppers. Remove the radiator with a testing tank to relieve the air with the thrust the bubbles to the source. The most practical pressure for the testing 3 pounds per square inch above normal operating pressure. Greater pressure will be in damage delicate if this is constriction radiator core. Frequent leaks will appear when low pressure with not and the high pressure with the closes with the joints of the accumulated lime magnesium deposit with expanding metal. The air pressure system used by garages with the tire inflation consistent with an air compressor motor pressure tank gauge is reducing valve and very satisfactory radiator testing working off to keep very small. Several men busy when no compressor is available. Ordinary tire pump will supply enough air pressure. Our testing bench. Since testing of the dirty job again, shop with equipment. The system minimizing disorder testing bench should be placed in the air pressure source and water lines, or preferably in wide the wall under just back of the window. The radiator adequate to prevent damage of the radiator, except the air pressure by using air pressure gauge, be guided by it. Field test tank. Field test task. The field test task shift the one piece of the canvas bag with wood stave and pockets to hold the sides up with the 4 round poles running through the canvas loops for the support of the rim. Rubber mat protects the bottom of the tank from being torn by the radiator when the tank is collapsed with the 2 poles that are removed and placed inside of the tank, which is then rolled inside of the mat and fastened of the 5 flat metal hooks. Alright, locating leaks. Locating leaks when the bubble arises often difficult to make rise of the radiator with the tank until the source of the bubble, the air surface of the water. Locate with the margin leak if possible. Draw with the knowledge for the radiator construction. Quite frequently, the large one will be detected more easily with the lower pressure. Pair with these, retest the smaller ones of the water leak for in the remains of the later with the test may be unsealed with the compressed air, prevent them from escaping, thus causing the leaks in the bottom of the remain undiscovered. On the one last test to determine the radiator over the tank. 2 leaks currently occurring exactly opposite one of another, one near the front of the core and the other in the back, should not be confusing. If the testing a honeycomb stand in the edge of the long of the tube to come up with the face of the tubular curve should be raised only with the lower rows of the tubes are immersed in water. Accurate idea with the location of the leaks based on the through understanding of the core construction. Locate opening of the seams back of the tube and use a sharp pointed tool. Or to find very small leaks, play with the bench light back in the radiator so the interior of the core can be seen. Stand on the radiator on the bench and spread the slip of leak with a flux and soapy wire through the eye drop, oil can, acid brush, or swab. Compressed air seeping through the leak will cause liquid to foam. Heavy truck cords occasionally coming into the shop with water tanks removed. The water passage of the tubes may have be closed before testing started. For honeycomb core soldered dummy tanks to have heads or strips, these made in discolored tanks, plate metal to one of which tube has been soldered for the air hose of the tool shown figure 36 for the test. Individual tube with a similar core shape and rubber stopper, 1/4 inch diameter hole large enough to increasing approximately 1/2 inch in the small end. Brass tube extending through 1/4 inch of the opening to the beginning of the 1/2 inch hole. The washer soldered on the brass tube prevents it from being pushed further. The air hose with the slipped over the tube. Use the test tool with the submerged core of the test tank with the place of the tool over the one end of the tube to be tested. Allow the water in the tube to be blown out with the air pressure then with the radiator level. Close the opposite end of the tube with the finger. Bubbles will then appear whenever the tube leaks. Shows the test tool for the tubular cross. Cores, air hose, brass tube, washer, stopper, 1/4 inch hole, 1/2 inch hole. The water test. The water test is so called with the leaks indicate with the escaping the water plate with the air test when equipped with the limited supplements is one with the air test suspect with it being inadequate sediments lime the pipe of the leaking joint with the brute force and joints, air pressure for the radiator, air test of the ceiling, leak of the joint over the tube's header plate with it often refused to show with the under air pressure for the region of the dry radiator after repairing the leaks found by air pressure by test and the water method of the radiator thoroughly with the dry remove the plug with the filler neck fill the radiator with the water. Be careful not to run it over or spill on the outside. Examine the core with the carefully with leaks. Place the air hose over the lower end of the overflow tube holding the palm of the hand over the filler neck while the 5 pound with the pressure applied against the water. Marking leaks. Adopt a uniform system marking leaks for the tank of leaks with a sharp pointed tool. With the pointed tool is most adaptable. Honeycomb cores bend to the strip or thin, small wire shape with a clothespin inserted bent first into the leak and then let one end of the clothespin project another farther than the other, indicating the side of the cell is leaking. Radiator disassembly. When working is being performed on vehicle radiators, the oxyacetylene welding torch is the source for heat. The flame is always just a carbonizing flame. Side member removal. The lights adjusting torch carbonizing flame apply to the top of the radiator. Heat on side members are joined and soldered at one side at a time, and the solder melts. Move the top of the side member always away from the upper tank until the metal cools. The heat with the bottom part of the side member remove it from the radiator. To overflow pipe. Metal solder tapes might hold the overflow pipe at the upper tank with the overflow pipe at the place wherever they enter the filler neck. Remove them in the radiator. Alright, 3. Upper tank removal. The trapping using oxyacetylene welding torch regular flame with the point with the upper tank of the header to the plate joint. When the solder starts to melt, tapping is commenced and move it all the way around the tank until the cycle is complete with the handle with the wire brush. The ideal for the operation of the torch is move the brush handle with the valve, keeping the approximately 3 inches to the rear of the flame at all time. But the vibration sets up the constant tap to prevent the solder from really sealing. B. An air blowgun. To protect the eyes against the molten solder of the flex of the goggles and face shield must be worn using the method of the precaution must be taken with the person working near by or not exposed to the flex or hot solder that might be flying through the air with the air apply with the torch until the solder starts to flow. Quickly blow out the molten solder with the flush full blast air with the proceed around the entire tank in this manner with the heating of 2 or 3 inches at the same time. 4. Lower tank. Lower tank is removed in the same way as the top tank. Filler neck. Use a pair of slip joint pliers. Hold the firm neck. Apply with the heat of the solder up joint until the metal to remove the upper tank. And it must be determined the type of the metal that has been used. The filler metal neck inlet and pipe outlet pipe. Some of the larger stationary type of the engines, such as light plants, have radiators that may have the cast iron parts. Great care must be taken to destroy. Not to destroy the tin surface of the metal. If the tin surface to destroy, they must be retained before assembly. 6. Inlet pipe. Hold the inlet pipe with a pair of pliers apply with the heat with the removal. 7. The baffle plate. The baffle plate with the side of the inside of the upper tank within some radiator baffle plates riveted inside. Rivet should be removed prior to applying heat. Once the rivets are removed, the heat is applied with the baffle plate with it removed in the same manner as one riveted. Outlet pipe is removed in the same way as the inlet pipe. Drain cocks. The drain cocks are found in the bottom of the radiator of the attached to the lower tank with one of the following places. A. If the drain cock is attached to the outlet pipe, it may be removed with unscrewing it. If the drain cock is not attached to the outlet pipe or a tap fighting is sweated to the bottom of the tank, is removed at the time of the application of the heat. Radiator assembly. A good soldering job is dependent on the most complete with the tinning of the metal prior to soldering. Use the proper flux with the close the union of the parts of the B side with the application of the adequate heating of the metal makes the solder flow freely and importantly. Tinning compound with a composed with the power tin and other chemical ingredients compound to give it a mix with water that makes the oil liquid with the liquid applied with the metal strip with the heat of the oil leave the deposit of the tin coating not intended with the use of the aluminum magnesium compound mixed with a half a can of the water over its own container fluid flux aids compound cleaning of the metal the white powder and is mixed with a ratio of 1 pound of flux to 5 pints of water. Flux is ideal for use of the radiator with the proper tinning of the metal with the as accomplished. It will cover the molten solder to move with an excellent capillary action when using flux. Caution must be taken to keep it out of the open scratch of the cuts of the skin, and the rubber gloves should be worn when working with the flux. Most commonly used the flux hydrochloric muriatic acid has been cut skilled with adding pure zinc of the preparing hydrochloric acid for use with the soldering plate with the desired quantity with the crock of other earthen vessel with the zinc until it is saturated in uncut muriatic acid. Its yellowish color moves clear after it has been cut in with the zinc. Muriatic acid is objectionable because of the effects of the workman due to the gases given off when heated. The reaction of hydrochloric muriatic acid with the zinc is at a procedure explosive with hydrogen gas. Therefore, the solution should be prepared outdoors. The most common material used with the soft side of the bond is almost alloy compound with a 50% tin, 50% lead. There are two types of solder the manufacturer prepared with the vehicle radiator. These types are acid core and wired solder. All solder removed from the parts of prior to the assembly. Any air with the show with the sign of it not being tainted with it must be retained with the oxyacetylene torch used with the flame and the adjusting of the carbonizing flame. If the soldering iron is used with the copper, the point of the more must be properly heated in tin. If the copper point is too cold, the solder will not flow freely, will not stick to the metal. If the copper point is too hot, the solder will form a little globe that will run off the surface of the metal. The small amount of the solder properly flowing with the joint will give the much better result with the joint as solder piled up with the rough seam. The good soldering job is the recommended with the man with which flow into the joint with a rough lumpy with the seam that indicate with the pour jump with the seam joint with the kind that should be gone over with properly heated irons flow down with a rigid pick up with the excess of the soldered speed with the soldering can be done with the torch flame in an advantage of the preferred over the soldering iron for the most purpose. Methods of applying solder with the torch is similar with the method used with the soldering iron. Torch and solder is melted all it flows directly upon the surface of the metal. The heat of the metal with the torch flame and both essentially liquefy the sulfur. Solder satisfactory requirements of the torch flame are will not be extinguished by fumes of the flux acid. Give sufficient heat with the accomplished with a quick fusion of the solder that will have not enough damage of metal being soldered. The job of the suit with the job include the long, slim, needle-like flame capable of reaching difficult places as well with a heavy, bushy-type flame for dismantling parts. Various gases can be used by soldering fast for a satisfactory result. Hydrogen gas supported with the compressed air of the very procedure produces a flame that is very satisfactory. The gas is not always available. The acetylene gas is also always used, but is not the most satisfactory because of the high degree of the heat generated by using acetylene and oxygen. There's a danger of damaging light metal. City with the natural gas is best. Next, liquid petroleum, and last, oxyacetylene. Alright, after the metal has been cleaned with the retained with the reassembled, the radiator can begin banned. There is no prescribed panel reassembly except for the radiator. Baffle plate must be reinstalled first. All parts of flux suitable with the flux and solder together. Upper tank is set in plate with the core with the tack together on each corner of the tacking with the plate for the solder. Each end with the after end of the solder started one corner of the tank solder tank all the way around. Repairing radiator leaks. After the leak has been marked with the radiators removed and the test of the repair of the seams, leaks that apply the heat to remove the old solder using the air gun and wire brush method. The old solder is removed at a distance of 3 inches on each side of the leak, and using the squirt bubble or acid brush flush them seam with muriatic acid. Beat the seam until the acid boils, then quickly blow wire brush out with the acid to remove all the dirt oxide, which are called the pore soldering bonding. Careful must be taken to direct the airstream of the wire brush toward anyone remove the acid hot solder. Flush seams liberally with the flux with using the squirt bubble and acid brush. Keeps warm and with the torch while flushing. Remove all flux monitor airstream. Proceed with the soldering in the usual manner. Patch and crack tanks. Place radiator tanks. Almost all radiator tanks are cast or stamped one piece to reduce number of potential leaks. Alright, cracks in stamped brass radiator tanks must be patched. The spreading soldered over the crack will not make permanent watertight repair. Wire brush scrape the area around the crack of the 1 inch larger than the patch, and to be installed to dig down the crack itself with a pointed tool with a tool. Clean the air with the underside of the patch, wiping them clean with the solder in the molten state. Fit in the patch in the place with a perfectly possible following the contour of the tank. Always patch the should have the round corners. Hold the patch in place with a screwdriver. Apply with the heat and proper amount of the heat will indicate with the stick of the solder will melt with the be touched with the patch. If proper care has been taken during the tinning operation, the patch will strong when watertight with the whole patch until the place until the solder has set. Blocking the tubes. Cellular honeycomb radiators damaged tube that may not be repaired. If it can be blocked off. 50% of the tubes of the radiator may be blocked off without adverse effect. Heat face of the tube with the header plate when the speed spread open with an improved tool with the old hacksaw blade with the sharpened one end with the shape of the chisel. Thoroughly tin inside of the tube with a tinning compound using acid brush, applying the tinning compound. Apply flux, fill the tube with the sour tube of the core. Heat fin to the header of the plate, raise fin 1/2 of an inch on each side of the tube to be blocked. Apply heat to the tube, blow out the sour with an air gun. Reheat the tube with the header plate with using a pair of needle nose pliers with bend the tube down and onto one side, remove them from the header plate, retain the area where the tube was removed with the header plate, apply the flux and sour hole shut, and repeat the same operation on the other header plate. G. Straightening a bent radiator core. Bent radiator core can be straightened provided with the bent is gradual with a sharply skinked through the wire tube. The passage of the big collapse should not be straightened. With the straightening is done by the press of the boards above the below of the core. Spread of the pressure protect the air fins. Hydraulic press must be used for this operation. Warning: epoxy materials may cause skin irritation if the epoxy resin is hard and come into contact with the skin. Wash the skin thoroughly with the balanced soap and water. Always use epoxy resin with hardeners in well-ventilated area. Repairing aluminum radiators. A radiator with repair with epoxy resin with glass and cloth with the aluminum screen due to the limited storage life of the resin. Hardener. Repair aluminum radiators with material which have been in storage more than 1 year is not recommended. The mixing ratio of the epoxy resin hardened normally given them by the weight ratio between 100 parts of epoxy to 14 to 17 parts hardener. While weighting the equipment is available, the 5 to 6 part of the epoxy resin volume of the 1 part hardener of the volume is recommended. The volume mixing ratio 5:1 ratio producing the compound a shorter pot life working time than the 6:1 ratio working life of the resin hardened mixture is approximately 15 to 25 minutes to 75 degrees. If the desired entire contents of the both hardener and resin can be used at adding the contents to the hardener. Can to the resin which will result in the correct mixing ratio. Alright, repair procedure for the end of the tank, the hole of the laceration, end of the tank of the radiator, with the trim of the wave of the ragged edge of the clean with the wire wheel with the blow with the dust and clean repaired area with the naphtha and paint thinner of the alcohol. Note: the presence of the oil of the repair area will result in poor adhesion. Repair with a hole larger than approximately 1 inch in the diameter is not recommended. Cut 2 pieces of aluminum screen with slightly larger than the hole of the wire to give the radiator material. Sandwich for trim of the screen prepare proper amount of epoxy resin hardened directed with the subparagraph 1. Apply sufficient amount of silica about the workable consistency, soft light putty-like. Thoroughly saturate the screen with epoxy mixture. Cut piece of glass cut larger than the hole. Saturate the epoxy mixture and form it over the hole. Clean surface around the area for the holes larger than 1/2 inch diameter. Second cloth layer is recommended. Place a piece of release film on the second patch within the hardened depressor. Work out of the trapped air pockets by working from the center of the patch outward and apply another cast of epoxy mixture over the glass cloth. Alright, no, cure will slow in a temperature below 70 degrees. Cures will shorten about 4 hours by placing a heat lamp over the patch and gradually increase the heat intensity, moving the lamp closer to the required repaired area. Caution: repair area temperature must not exceed 100 degrees any time thereafter. Minimum distance between the heat and lamp of the repair is at least 2 feet, regardless of the temperature requirement. Allow the completed patch to set undisturbed for 16 to 24 hours. J. The repair procedure for the core. For laceration of the core, remove the pins approximately 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch beyond the damaged cross tube. Remove the jagged edge of the cross tube with the clean with a pencil type of the wire grinding wheel and continue preparation. 3. Prepare a proper amount of epoxy hardener, also an efficient amount of silicone to obtain the workable consistency, soft putty-like. 4. Example picture of the end tube of the cross tube, the clove of the tube, which apply with the second coat of the epoxy mixture of the closed off tube and limited immediate surrounding area allow the repair to dry. Caution: do not test the aluminum radiator in the tank that has been being used to test the copper brass of the radiator. Flux of the copper brass radiator repair will contaminate water. Test tank will attack with aluminum. Test: to test the radiator repair, block all inlet and outlet connections, install pressure equipment, and apply 18 psi for the period 3 minutes while radiator is immersed in water. Absence of the air bubble denotes the satisfactory repair. Clean and paint. Precaution: radiators should never be painted with the ordinary lacquers and enamel paints, that is, they insulate with the heat transfer to reduce the cooling efficiency, always non-insulating radiator core paint. After all leaks have been repaired, the radiator should be painted with a non-insulating paint should be used. Before painting, the radiator should be clean, dry, free of all flux residues. No more than 1 coat of paint will be applied with the radiator core, tackled, wheeled vehicle which are subject to painting. 2. Conclusion: this task introduced specific operation required to repair radiators. The next test presents procedure following with repairing of fuel tanks. Our lesson 2, task 3, operating required glass radiator fuel tanks. Describe operations required with proper repair of fuel tank repair.